How to learn English sentences. Part 1. Meet Maria. Maria looked at the clock on her wall. It was 8 o'clock a.m. Time for her English class. She sighed and picked up her heavy bag. Inside were many books and papers. Maria wanted to learn English, but it was hard for her. She often forgot the new words and sentences she learned. Maria walked to the bus stop. The sun was bright and the sky was blue. She saw her neighbor, Mrs. Johnson. "Good morning, Maria," Mrs. Johnson said with a smile. "Good morning," Maria replied. She wanted to say more, but the words didn't come. In her mind, she thought, "Have a nice day," but she couldn't remember how to say it in English. On the bus, Maria opened her English book. She read a sentence. "The cat is on the table." She said it quietly to herself many times. "The cat is on the table. The cat is on the table." But when she closed the book, the words left her mind. Maria felt sad. Why was it so hard to remember? She looked out the window and saw a cat sitting on a fence. "The cat is on the," she started, but she couldn't finish. The word fence was not in her sentence, and she forgot that. At the language school, Maria's teacher, Mr. Brown, greeted the class. "Good morning, everyone. Today, we'll learn about daily routine." Maria tried to focus, but the new sentences were confusing. "I wake up at 7 o'clock a.m. I brush my teeth. I eat breakfast." Maria wrote them down, but she knew she would forget them soon. After class, Mr. Brown asked Maria to stay. "Maria, I see you're having trouble," he said kindly. "Don't worry. Many people find it hard to learn a new language, but I have an idea that might help you." Maria looked up, hopeful. "Really? What is it?" Mr. Brown smiled. "It's a special project. I want you to keep a diary in English. Write about your day, use the sentences we learn in class, and don't worry about mistakes. Can you try this for 1 month?" Maria nodded. She wasn't sure if it would help, but she was willing to try anything. That night, Maria sat at her small desk. She opened a new notebook and wrote the date, September 1st. Then she paused. What should she write? She looked around her room and saw her cat, Whiskers, sleeping on her bed. Slowly, she wrote, "The cat is on the bed." She smiled. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Part 2. The Diary. Every day, Maria wrote in her diary. At first, it was hard. She could only write simple sentences. September 2nd. I wake up at 7 o'clock a.m. I eat breakfast. I go to school. September 3rd. The weather is nice. The sun is bright. I like the sun. But as days passed, Maria found herself remembering more. She started to use the sentences from class in her daily life. One morning, she saw Mrs. Johnson again. This time, Maria said, "Good morning. Have a nice day." Mrs. Johnson looked surprised and happy. In her diary that night, Maria wrote, "I saw my neighbor. I said, 'Have a nice day.' I felt happy." At the end of the week, Maria read her diary. She was amazed. She had written something every day, and she could understand everything she wrote. It wasn't perfect English, but it was hers. In class, Mr. Brown taught them about likes and dislikes. Maria listened carefully and wrote new sentences in her note. "I like cats. I don't like dogs. Do you like coffee?" That evening, she added these to her diary, but she made them personal. "I like my cat, Whiskers. I don't like loud noises. Do you like learning English?" As weeks passed, Maria's diary grew. She wasn't just writing single sentences anymore, she was connecting them. September 15th. Today was a good day. I woke up early and made a big breakfast. I like eggs and toast. After breakfast, I studied English. I read a short story about a girl and her dog. I don't like dogs, but the story was nice. Maria started to notice patterns in English sentences. She saw how words fit together, how verbs changed with time, and how questions were formed. She didn't know the grammar rules, but she could feel what sounded right. One day, Mr. Brown asked the class to talk about their weekends. Many students were nervous, but Maria raised her hand. She had written about her weekend in her diary, so she knew what to say. "On Saturday, I went to the park," she said slowly. "I saw many dogs. I don't like dogs, but they were funny. One dog played with a red ball. It was a nice day." The class was quiet. Then Mr. Brown smiled big. "Excellent, Maria. Your English is improving so much." Maria felt proud. For the first time, she had spoken several sentences without forgetting or getting confused. In her diary that night, she wrote, "Today, I spoke in class. I was nervous, but I did it. Mr. Brown said my English is improving. I am happy."
I will keep writing and learning.
Part 3. New Strategies. As Maria continued her diary project, she discovered new ways to learn and remember English sentences. She started to create little stories in her mind to connect words and ideas. For example, when she learned the sentence, "the book is on the shelf," she imagined a funny story. A big talking book was trying to climb up to a high shelf. It was saying, "Let me up. I want to be on the shelf." This silly image helped her remember the sentence easily. Maria also found that songs helped her remember English. One day in class, Mr. Brown taught them a simple song about days of the week. Sunday, Monday, happy days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days. Thursday, Friday, happy days. Saturday, what a day, groovin' all week with you. Maria loved this song. She sang it quietly while doing chores, while riding the bus, even while petting Whiskers. Soon, she never mixed up the days of the week in English again. In her diary, she wrote, "I learned a new song today. It helps me remember the days. Music makes English fun." Another strategy Maria discovered was using sticky notes. She started putting small notes around her house with English sentences. On her bathroom mirror, "I brush my teeth every morning." On the refrigerator, "I like to eat fresh fruits." Near the door, "Don't forget your keys." Every time she saw these notes, she read them aloud. Soon, these sentences became automatic. She didn't have to think about them anymore. One day, Mrs. Johnson came over for coffee. She noticed the sticky notes and asked about them. Maria explained in simple English, "They help me learn. I see, I read, I remember." Mrs. Johnson was impressed. "What a smart idea. Here you teaching us in Spanish with sticky notes." Maria laughed and nodded. She was becoming a teacher too. In her diary that night, Maria wrote, "Today, I explained my English notes to Mrs. Johnson. I spoke for a long time in English. It felt good. Maybe I can help others learn languages too." Part 4. Challenges and Progress. As Maria's English improved, she faced new challenges. She learned more complex sentences and grammar rules. Sometimes it felt overwhelming. One day in class, Mr. Brown introduced the present perfect tense. "We use this to talk about experiences," he explained. For example, "I visited Paris. Have you ever eaten sushi?" Maria felt lost. In her diary that night, she wrote, "Today was hard. New grammar is confusing. I don't understand have visited, have eaten. Why not just say I visited or I ate? English is strange sometimes." But Maria didn't give up. She remembered her strategies. She made up a story about a forgetful time traveler who always said, "I have," before talking about his trips, because he couldn't remember if they happened yesterday or 100 years ago. This silly idea helped her remember when to use the present perfect. She also wrote example sentences on sticky notes. "I have never seen a kangaroo. Have you ever climbed a mountain? She has lived here for 10 years. Maria put these around her house and practiced them every day. Slowly, the new grammar started to make sense. In her diary, she started to use more complex sentences. "I have studied English for 3 months now. I've learned many new words and grammar rules. Sometimes it's hard, but I have not given up. I have made progress, and I am proud of myself." Maria's confidence grew. She started to watch English TV shows with subtitles. At first, she understood very little, but she wrote down interesting sentences she heard and added them to her diary. Phrases like "what's up?" and "hang on a second" became part of her vocabulary. One day, Maria decided to challenge herself. She would try to speak only English for a whole day. It was difficult, and sometimes she had to use gestures or simple words when she couldn't remember a specific term. But she did. In her diary that night, she wrote her longest entry yet. "Today was a big day. I spoke only English. It was hard but exciting. In the morning, I ordered coffee in English. The cashier understood me. At work, I had a short conversation with a colleague about the weather. In the evening, I called my English-speaking cousin and we talked for 10 minutes. I made mistakes, but I kept talking. I feel proud and happy. I've come a long way since I started this diary. English is becoming a part of me now." Part 5. A New Chapter. As months passed, Maria's English diary became thicker. Her sentences were longer, her vocabulary richer. She still had much to learn, but she was no longer the scared, forgetful student she had been. One day, Mr. Brown made an announcement. "Our school is starting a language exchange program. We're looking for volunteers who can spend time with English-speaking students who want to learn Spanish. Would anyone like to participate?" Maria's hand shot up without hesitation. Later, she wrote in her diary, "I have volunteered for the language exchange program. I'm nervous but excited. I will use my experience to help others. Maybe I'll share my learning strategies too." The next week, Maria met her language exchange partner, Tom. He was an American student trying to learn Spanish. They met at a cafe, both feeling a bit nervous. "Hi, I'm Tom," he said with a thick American accent. "Nice to meet you." Maria smiled. "Hello, Tom. I'm Maria. Nice to meet you too. How was your Spanish?" Tom laughed. "Not great. I forget everything I learn. How did you get so good at English?" Maria thought for a moment, then reached into her bag. She pulled out her diary and a pack of sticky notes. "Let me show you some tricks I've learned," she said. As Maria explained her strategies to Tom, she realized how far she had come. She was speaking English fluently, helping someone else learn a language. She felt proud and grateful. That night, her diary entry was special. "Today, I became a teacher. I showed Tom how to use a diary and sticky notes to learn Spanish. I told him about making funny stories to remember words and using songs to learn grammar. As I was explaining, I realized something important. My difficulty with remembering things was no weakness. It pushed me to find creative ways to learn. Now that these strategies are helping others, I've learned more than just English sentences. I have learned that everyone's brain works differently, and that's okay. I've learned that mistakes are not bad. They're how we grow. I've learned that learning a language is about connecting with people, not just memorizing words. Tomorrow, I will start a new chapter. Literally, I'm going to buy a new notebook. But this one won't be a diary. It will be a book of strategies and tips for learning languages. I'll write it in English and Spanish. Maybe one day, it will help other students who struggle like I. My journey with English isn't over. There's still so much to learn, but now I know I can do it. Every new sentence is an adventure, every conversation a chance to grow. I'm not afraid of forgetting anymore because I know how to remember. Thank you, little diary. You've been my friend and teacher. Now it's time to share what I've learned with the world." Maria closed her diary with a smile. On her desk, a new, empty notebook waited. On its cover, she wrote, "How to Learn English Sentences, a guide for forgetful but creative learners." As she got ready for bed, she looked at the sticky note on her mirror. It had been there for months, but tonight she really saw it. You can do it, one sentence at a time. Maria smiled. Yes, she could, and now she would help others do it too. The end.
Practice speaking English sentences daily with a language partner or tutor. Consistency is the key factor in making progress in language learning. Practice English sentences daily to improve your language skills. Starting with simple sentences is crucial for building a strong foundation in language learning. By beginning with simple structures and vocabulary, learners can grasp the basics and gradually progress to more complex sentences. Creating flashcards with English sentences and their translations is an effective way to learn and reinforce language skills. To improve pronunciation and intonation, it is beneficial to practice listening to native speakers and repeating the sentences they say. By watching movies and TV shows, you can pay close attention to the sentences used in various contexts. Mimic the dialogue and strive to understand the nuances and emotions behind the words spoken. Practice reading sentences aloud to improve speaking skills and reinforce memory. Writing a few sentences daily on different topics is a valuable practice for reinforcing grammar and vocabulary skills. Start with basic sentences and gradually add more details to make them complex. This helps you learn how sentences are structured. Finding a language partner to practice speaking and writing sentences together is a great way to improve language skills and build confidence in conversation. Recording yourself saying sentences allows you to listen back and identify areas for improvement in your spoken language. Understanding common sentence patterns and structures, such as subject-verb-object, is crucial for mastering English language. Using a dictionary to look up example sentences helps understand how new words are used in context, aiding in better comprehension and retention. When learning a new language, it's beneficial to imitate native speakers by practicing the way they form and say sentences. This approach aids in natural language acquisition and enhances fluency. Engaging in conversations is essential for practicing and improving sentence formation in a new language. By interacting with native speakers or other learners, you can gain real-life experience and confidence in using the language. Language learning apps are valuable tools for improving sentence structure and practicing language skills. Mastering sentence connectors like and, but, because, and, although allows for the creation of more sophisticated and coherent sentences, ultimately enhancing communication skills. Regularly practicing forming and answering questions in English is essential for improving sentence fluency. By doing so, you can enhance your language skills and gain confidence in communication. Summarizing what you read in your own words using complete sentences helps in better understanding and retention of the content. Mnemonics are a helpful tool for language learners to remember sentence structures and vocabulary. By creating mnemonic devices, such as acronyms or memorable phrases, learners can easily recall grammar rules and word meanings. For example, to remember the Spanish verb conjugations, a learner might create the mnemonic CEGET corresponding to the first letters of the conjugations: yo, to, el, ella, nosotros, as, vosotros, as, ellos, ellas. This technique can be applied to various aspects of language learning and can make the process more engaging and effective. Practicing different tenses involves working on forming sentences in various time frames, including past, present, and future. This helps to develop a comprehensive understanding of verb conjugation and time usage in English language. Incorporating common idiomatic expressions into your sentences can help you sound more natural and fluent in English conversations. Using these expressions can add depth and accuracy to your language proficiency. Using English in daily life involves actively thinking in English and forming sentences in your mind during everyday activities. This practice helps in becoming more fluent and confident in English communication. Analyzing sentences involves breaking them down into their grammatical components to understand their construction. Joining English clubs or forums can provide a supportive environment for practicing language skills and forming sentences with others. Learning to form sentences in English takes time. Be patient and keep practicing regularly.